Hello everyone, welcome to the Ozark Outpost. This is Global War 85, and this is an introduction for Operation Abrams. Why Operation Abrams, you might wonder? Well, the last game I did was Operation Pershing in honor of the Pershing 2 missile, or the Pershing family of missiles. So this one is dedicated to the M1A1 Abrams main battle tank. At the time, and I think now in hindsight for sure, after it's been seen in combat around the world, in 1985, there wasn't another tank in the field that could have touched the Abrams. In open field battle, the Abrams would have chewed up T-72s and T-80s like they were aluminum cans. So that's what we're going to call this one. And of course, you probably already know the Abrams tank was named in honor of General Creighton Abrams, who was probably the premier armor officer in the United States Army. He graduated of West Point during World War II. For most of the war, he commanded a battalion of tanks in the 4th Armored Division, which was the spearhead of Patton's Third Army in the fight across France, the Battle of the Bulge. The 4th Armored led the relief of Bastogne. They led the attack across the Rhine into the Saar, as Creighton Abrams was on the point of the spear for most of the war. After World War II, he arrived in Korea late to get in on that. He went through a series of staff assignments between Korea and Vietnam. In 1967, he was sent to Saigon to be General Westmoreland's deputy. And when Westmoreland was relieved the following year after the Tet Offensive, General Abrams took command of MACV, tried to go on the offensive, but then followed his orders and implemented President Nixon's Vietnamization program to draw down and eventually end the war. In 1970-71, I think, General Abrams went home to be Chief of Staff. He laid the groundwork for the all-volunteer Army, and he put in an order to his staff, which eventually resulted in the formation of the 75th Ranger Regiment. He died very young at 59. He was a cigar chain smoker his whole adult life, so he fell to lung cancer after so many bullets and shells had failed to stop him. So it's going to be Operation Abrams, and this is going to be something new. This is going to be some live play testing for version 1.6 of the game. There are a number of changes that I'm going to try out in this game, and we'll see how they work. First among those changes is here on the tech chart. You see there that Tech 3 computers has been replaced by something called advanced logistics. You see everybody's starting position there. Here's a little cheat sheet I have made for advanced logistics that will come into play later on. At each stage of the tech, different capabilities are unlocked. So we'll see how that goes. Next change is to the Soviet Global Command random events. In addition to the 3 that exist currently, a 4th has been added. The Red Caribbean extension of the PRF Communist Front is now going to become its own random event. And for the purposes of testing in this game, I have already pre-chosen the random events. For the Soviets, it will be Walker Spy Ring, which you'll see when we get going. That involves some changes. And then for Warsaw Pact, it's going to be Habsburg Tears. Those are going to be the 2 random events, and one of the reasons I'm doing those 2 is because some changes have also been made to NATO reinforcements and some NATO abilities if these 2 events are played together. There was a SAM and another mechanized infantry added to Greece. U.S. Global Command, as a result of these 2 events being played, can now send 3 military aid to NATO per turn instead of 1, with some restrictions that I'll get into as it comes up. Also, because another change, because these 2 are being played together, there is now a minor army base in Piedmont, and there is now a second minor army base in Mara Mara. You probably see NATO field artillery on the board too. That's something else that I'm going to test, is some new rules for a new class of units that is being called the Headquarters or HQ class. This unit class comprises the artillery units. Field artillery is now going to be available to all factions. It is going to be purchasable, whereas in 1.5 it isn't. Warsaw Pact gets to have a few to start the game, and that's all they get. China can purchase field artillery, but nobody else could. Well, now everyone can. In addition to that, you have regular artillery, SAMs, and SPAGs are the HQ class units. And there's a change been made to the SPAGs, well, probably a couple of changes, that's being tested. It's, to put it in a nutshell, the only difference now between SAMs and SPAGs is that SAMs can do missile defense and SPAGs can only do air defense. That's it. Everything else about them is the same. SPAGs are now going to roll 1 die per air unit up to a maximum of 3, just like SAMs. SPAGs can stop enemy air movement or block enemy air movement, just like SAMs. You can't just fly over top of a SAM and ignore it. Now it's the same with SPAGs. And the HQ unit class, each unit type is restricted now to a maximum purchase of 2 per turn. Let's see, what other changes do we have in here? Well, getting back to Walker Spy. Well, no, I'll do that later because that's just regular part of it. Some other changes that have been made. The U.S. units that were forward deployed to NATO in the 1.5 setups have been taken away. So on Iceland, in the 1.5 setup chart, this light infantry and fighter are U.S. Global. Now these are NATO units. The also the two A-10s that started forward deployed in Rhineland and Marmara. These are now NATO A-10s. And the F-117 that under the 1.5 setups begins the game in southern United States. That's now in southern England, and it is a NATO F-117. It's one of the other things we're going to try is NATO now has the ability to build A-10s and F-117s at U.S. allied bases. U.S. allied bases only. And NATO can also send these two units to NATO as military aid. Another change that we're going to try is with the U.S. POMCUS sites. These are now going to be able to build 2 vehicle class units rather than 1. And the 2 units do not have to be done on the same turn. You could do 1 unit here this turn, and then you could buy another one the following turn or 2 turns later or whatever you want. But 2 vehicle class each at the POMCUS sites. I am not playing any of the expansions this time because we're testing some new stuff for 1.6. We want to have as few variables affecting the new things as possible. So no expansions at all. No ASW, well, SPAGs are now part of HQ class, so that's no longer considered an expansion. But no ASW choppers, no rocket artillery, SRBMs, no battleships and battle cruisers, none of that stuff. So, see if I can find an example here. So we're now doing base rules. Attack helicopters now I'm gonna use the base rules for them where they have naval combat and sub-combat capabilities. But they do not have sub-detection. Somebody has to detect the enemy sub for them. We have some new setup in the Middle East we're going to try out too. There's no more inherent units for Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates. What you see on the map here now is what Saudi Arabia starts the game with. And UAE has an opening setup that looks like that. Let's see. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, dashboards. NATO and U.S. Global have had their expeditionary forces augmented. Before, NATO was just a Marine and an airborne. Now they're those 2 units plus 4 paramilitaries and 3 light infantries. It'll be the same as placement for the expeditionary forces as normal. They have to go somewhere that you could place them if you bought them. Oh wait, no, that's not how we did. Never mind. That's for reserve forces over here. These can go anywhere you want to put them. Sorry about that. And then on U.S., in addition to the 2 airborne and Marine, they now also have 4 paramilitary. Also, addition to the dashboards, the U.S. and NATO both now have 2 nuclear-capable strategic bombers and 2 nuclear cruise missiles. There are the extras for NATO. Let's see. NATO has an extra artillery in the battlefield nukes reserve box. That's something different. And I'm doing, what do we call it? NATO reinforcement, Nordic defense, whatever it is. The minor army base in Akershus and the some additional units in Scandinavia and Denmark. I think that is all of the changes that occur to me off the top of my head. I think it is. If I've forgotten something, maybe I'll remember it later, then I can bring it up in a factions turn. But that's the gist of what's happening with this one. So, I hope you enjoy it. Ozark Outpost. Over and out.